Hi guys, and welcome to a revisit of the Tripowin OLINA. And the reason for this is I've been getting a lot of requests to compare it with other IEMs at around $100 that I would think would be an alternative choice, or would be an option if you don't want to go for a single DD. So well, I selected one which is at that price point, which is the GD3C, okay, from GS Audio. I've also got here the AudioSense AQ4, which is twice the price, but I have it here for a reason which I will explain in a little bit. And then I've got this IEM here at this end here, which is an older IEM, and it's an IM that I think, when it was around, it was not given its deserved merit. And now, the few of us that have it and that have been playing around with it, which has now become something of a want-to-do thing by a lot of people, which is to modify the IEMs to try and obtain a sound signature which is more suited to your musical preferences and musical tastes, and see if you can improve upon what the IEM is capable of. And I myself have done several videos on mods on KZs, for example. I mean, there hasn't been one single KZ that I modded which I didn't say, wow, why didn't they make this from the get-go like this? The truth is, with regards to KZ, yes, they've got a varied spectrum of products and a varied spectrum of models and sounds and this and that. But I mean, you have the CCA CRA. That thing is incredible. It is an incredible IM. Love it, hate it. We must not forget one very important factor. It's a $15 IM, which, with proper tips, and you give it a nice source, it will play like you wouldn't believe it was a $15 IEM. And once you've actually modified it, like I've done, I've modified it a little bit. Oh my god. And that applies to the NRA, that applies to the ZEX, which I've just finished modding, and I'll be posting a video on that. That applies to the DQ6, to the DQ6S. That applies to the ZS10, that applies to the C10. They are all IEMs which I think would have deserved a little bit more time spent in tuning them slightly better, and the results would have been pleasing, I think, and they would have manifested themselves in more sales. I'm positive about that. Anyway, on to what what is today's topic, which is the Tripowin OLINA. I mean, there's not much I can say about the OLINA in terms of its sound. It is a extremely well tuned IEM. Just one thing before I carry on, all of the comparisons I've done here, I've used the same tip always, okay? Just that one there, I've done a separate tip choice, but these ones have always had the same tip, so that it kind of was fair. The OLINA, I mean, it was supposed to, or the intention was to be something which emulated the sound of the Tanzgem Oxygen, which is kind of a reference up to $300 of a single DD. I'm a big fan. I think it's a tremendous IM. Fair enough, you have the MIM Dark Magician, which in certain little aspect, yes, it is superior, but I didn't find it superior to justify twice the price. You have a few other single DDs which I'll be receiving now, and I'll be comparing them as well. But for me, it is still maintains itself as a reference, and the OLINA was an attempt by Tripowin in the collaboration that they did to emulate that sound, to improve upon that sound, and to a certain extent they have. The OLINA has amazing technicalities. Its 3D capabilities are absolutely amazing. However, I think that tonally, its tonality, its timbre, just the bass texture, it's not on the same level as the Oxygen. I still think that the Oxygen is superior, But for $100 single ED, this is definitely a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Yes, you have the Moondrop Aria, a fantastic IM, which I personally find flawless in many aspects, and in a few details I actually prefer the Aria to the OLINA. It's cheaper, so it would be a question of how much you want to spend, how much you don't want to spend. You have the HC Soundheart mirror, which is another fantastic single DD IM, again cheaper than the OLINA for $50. Excuse me. You have the Richo SG01, cheaper still for around $45, which is again another fantastic IM. But if you want to just get an IM which has a very good sound signature, plays really well most music genres, and you know, you can't go wrong in the sense of, oh, I should have gotten that one. The OLINA is definitely that choice. It is. Personally, like I said, I've mentioned the flaws that I think it had. I would have liked it to have a little bit more bass, but that's just my personal taste. I think overall the balance between bass, mids, and highs is perfect. And if I am going to floor it, floor, it's a strong word, and this was something that other people have also mentioned, is that it is sometimes overly forward, overly bright, and that 5K area there, it can it can jump at you. It's actually interesting because, you know, when you look at the graph, it doesn't you don't perceive it to be. I mean, I'll show you the graph here. It's the blue line, as you can see. You know, it actually doesn't have any peaks at around 5K. You know, it seems all nice and perfect. I mean, really nothing that can be pointed at. But there's, I don't know, it's just perhaps the energy level that it has as compared to the bass that it has. Perhaps that is the reason why it just jumps at you, you know, and it just feels a little bit edgy. And to counteract that minor detail, some people have done mods to it in terms of adding two dampers, on the nozzle to OLINA, which by the way actually does work and brings it down just that little extra to make it then not feel as like it's on the edge. And yeah, that's basically it. One of the IEMs that I was asked multiple times to compare it with, because I reviewed it and I see it was, you know, an amazing option if you wanted a hybrid for around $100, was the GD3C. Like I said, that review, and I'll repeat it now in a very summarized manner. This is unquestionably the best 1+2 hybrid at around $100. It is. It has very much the sound that you get on the AQ4 from AudioSense at half the price. And that's the reason why I have got the AQ4. The AQ4 is, for me, at $200, the go-to hybrid, period. This is, and I mentioned that, this is like a mini soft ears volume. Maybe not as forward and not as bright as the soft ears volume, not as detailed, but it's basically a mini version of the soft ears volume, costing about $100 less. And this is a cheaper version, or a more accessible version of the AQ4. So you could say by default it's a mini, it's an extra mini soft ears volume. And what do I mean by that? Well, it has all of what the 3A had, its older brother. So everything, you know, in terms of its tonal balance, resolution, bass texture, mids was already good and became even better in the 3C. The 3A suffered from a slight sensation of being over clinical at points. It kind of gave you the feeling that you were listening to something which that typical BA timbre. While on the 3C, I think that they've corrected that, and you no longer have that feeling of that BA timbre being present, at least in my opinion, with the songs that I listen to. I mean, I'll give you some examples. If I listen to, let me see, Mary Magdalene, the guitar on here sounds much more realistic than it does on the 3A, and on the 3A it sounds good, mind you. Taste of Honey from Patricia Barber as well. The fact that they've been able to, let me see if I can show you here the graph, and you'll understand what I mean. Okay, so we're looking at, let's look at the red line. Okay, fine, you have that 5K peak, fair enough, but the energy past 5K has been brought down as compared to the 3A, and it was that energy that gave it sometimes that sensation of being too clinical, too forward. There was just something that, on the 3C that doesn't happen. The 3C, it's perfect. It's compared to the 3A, it's corrected that problem. Yes, it's still got that peak there, but the fact that the bass curve is the way that it is, it kind of, cuts out that possible aggressiveness or that sibilance that could perhaps be present from that 5K peak, and that energy passed as well, because it's been toned down. It just is much nicer to listen to. It's a if the 3A was a pleasure to listen to and was not fatiguing at all, this one has improved upon it. So the flaws of the 3A, in my opinion, have been corrected. They've added an extra touch to the bass, which was already good, and it's actually something of a GS Audio trait. They have very good bass. It might not be the deepest sometimes, but it's always very clean, very fast. It's got that kind of BA quickness, let's put it that way, with very quick decays, and so it's very engaging. I mean, the 7B, the GD7B, wow, you have to listen to it. It's got quick bass, and I mean quick bass. It hits you hard, it slams you hard. It's like if you're listening to these huge studio monitors. Okay, so the 3C has got that quickness with a little bit extra depth, so it's got a little bit more rumble. The mids are no longer as forward or as on the edge as they were on the 3A. So it's really, I mean, I'll show you here. Like I said, it's the red line. It's really good, really very well executed. The mids instruments, tonality wise, I think it's absolutely spot on. There's really nothing I can flaw it. How does it then, or how does the OLINA then stand up to this? Well, what I'm going to say now is probably going to generate a little bit of controversy, but anyway, look, it's my opinion. For the same price and stock, we're both comparing stock IEMs. For the same price, I would choose the 3C. It just suits my library better. Tonally and the timbre, with my musical taste, it just sounds more correct to me. It's got that little extra bass over the OLINA, which let me show you the graph. Okay, so we are comparing the red line and the bluish line. Okay, from basically you can see that from around 70 hertz onwards, it kind of very much follows the OLINA in terms of the amount of bass up to 1K. It's just then there at 1K that you have a quicker rise and a more significant rise in the pinna gain. We're talking about a difference of about 3 dBs, and then they kind of plateau more or less the same without then the peak present at 5K on the OLINA that the 3C has, and then they fall off more or less as well at the same time, although then the OLINA has then this extra peak at 12K. Okay, the difference in the bass there is that 5 dBs extra that you have at 20, around like 3 to 5 dBs from about 20 to 40 hertz, which, mind you, it's not present in a lot of music. It isn't, but it just adds to the texture of bass. It adds to the texture of the mids. It contributes to making the mids sounding more realistic, more fuller. The 3C does this better than the OLINA. That's why I choose it over the OLINA. Okay, technically, in terms of technical capabilities, 3D soundstage, imaging on the soundstage on the OLINA is better. Imaging is about the same. Detailed retrieval is about equal. Like I said, it's basically the difference in the bass which contributes to that extra warmness to the mids, giving male voices just that extra touch that just makes it more satisfying. Gregory Porter, Hey Laura, Holding On, it just sounds a little bit nicer. Twilight from Brian Sims as well just sounds nicer. 80s from Bruno Mueller, the guitar just sounds nicer. Mind you, let me just say, I mean, we're not talking huge differences. Perhaps some of you would listen to these same songs and would maybe prefer the OLINA, or maybe say, no, it's the same. Me personally, Tony, me, Akros, I just find it that it's just slightly more satisfying on the 3C. For example, Crystal Ball, you know, the voice, the piano, it's just, even a simple song like Boom Boom Pow from Black Eyed Peas, plenty impact there, plenty engagement, not lacking. But this one just adds a little bit to it. It's just, I'm trying to find here an analogy. Look, if I was to find an analogy in terms of subwoofers, for those of you that might understand what I'm saying, this, for example, has got a really good 8-inch subwoofer with nice impact, and it can go nice and deep and everything. And this one has got a good quality 10-inch subwoofer. It maybe ultimately doesn't have the same impact as that, but the fact that it's just slightly bigger, and it just has that different way of doing the same thing. Okay, that's an attempt by me to try and convey what I'm trying to say here in terms of the bass. This can come across as maybe having a quicker, cleaner bass. This one has got a more full bass. Okay, and it's like I said, it's just basically down to that area there below 70 hertz. This one has just got more sub bass focus. The funny thing, like I said, is that over here you do feel that 5-6K area coming across very prominently, and if you modify it, then yes, it does go away. And it's such a simple mod that modified, you take your pick which you want. But if you're one of those people that doesn't want to modify, you just want to listen to it straight away as it is, I feel personally that this is a better choice. To quickly just talk about this IM that I brought in here, and to say why, and to justify why I've put it here. This is a CVJ CS8. It's a 1+3 hybrid, which CVJ had a few years ago. Cost around $35 to $40. And it had a very well executed bass with bright mids and highs. This is maybe not the best comparison, but kind of like an HC Sound Heart Mirror. Okay, now this modified, and I've put a 10th Tanya filter on the nozzle, and I've put a Y3 filter there just to increase the bass a little bit. That's all I've done. This thing modified, it gives it gives IEMs, and it gives these two IEMs a hard time. It gives them. It does not have the bass quality, quantity, everything of the 3C. No, it doesn't. But it is every bit as quick and as impactful and as dynamic as the bass on the OLINA, with all the cleanliness and detail that has also here. You could question, oh, but is it realistic? Is it uncolored? Well, no, but maybe, perhaps, yes, it is colored. Maybe it's not realistic, but it's well done. It's well done, and it's another proof of something which I've said recently in another video. Some older IEMs I feel were just more well done than the newer IEMs, and they never really got their their time to shine. And the CS8 is definitely one of those. So honestly, if you like modding and you can get yourself a CS8, if you can find it, don't hesitate. It's a very nice IEM, worthwhile modding, and it will sound great. Oh, by the way, I actually mentioned it was a Y3 filter here. It's a Y3 or a Y4. I've used both. The difference is not significant in terms of the output. I believe that in the video that I did for the CS8, I mentioned Y4 because I was using a Y4. I then changed it to the Y3, and I just liked it more with the Y3, and I left it with the Y3. Anyway, guys, I hope this video has answered the question of OLINA versus GD3C that quite a few people asked me. I was actually quite surprised. And both are excellent IEMs, both are amazing IEMs. I mean, it's not day and night differences here, but with my musical choice, and if you follow me and you know the music I like to listen to, and the 3C is perhaps the wiser choice. All right. Anyway, guys, thank you. Take care. Bye bye.